Lawyers, the most valuable asset that we can possess is our communication skills. With the ongoing pandemic, ensuing frequent lockdowns, our social interactions has been cut down to minimal, which has obviously rusted our communication skills. It would be very helpful if you would give us some pointers to excel in this aspect.
Everybody, when they talk about communication, obviously the primary thing people look at is how can I talk? How can I present myself? How can I logically make myself communicate the key points that I want to do? Majority of the times, the key in communicating is actually listening, what you call empathetic listening, especially when you are in a court scenario, especially when you are dealing with the environmental law or human rights or any of them. Empathy is going to be one of the most important aspects. Not only if you are working in these kinds of situations, even in regular court cases, whether it is civil or criminal or what you might call a office law or any of the type of things, more you can connect with, whether it is the judge, whether it is the other lawyer, whether it is the plaintiff, whether it's a witness, if you can listen empathetically, and if you can actually be pursued as a friend of that person, you will be able to get a lot more positive responses and a lot more responses from the other person. So first and foremost communication is empathetic listening. So how do we do that? There are, in the court, you talk about a judge, you talk about a witness, you talk about a accuser, you talk about the accused, you talk about prosecution, defense. Some of those try to create a what you call a factual basis, what you call ability to create a fair and appropriate trial in such a way only the facts and the legal basis and the logical arguments seem to win the case. But majority of the times, if you have empathy to begin with, and empathy is both useful in listening and speaking, first in listening, first of all, paying attention to what people are speaking. So sometimes meeting the eyes, like what you are doing, acknowledging by nodding or appreciating, changing your moods, paying attention. Some of those, first of all, are the basic tenets and basic, you might call a simple but effective means to show that you are interested and you are attentive. Then softening your facial features, because even if you are asking very intense, very difficult and personal questions, if you can soften your style and tone, and to a certain extent, do it softly and do it with a smile, sometimes you will be able to actually catch other people unaware, number one. Number two, it is much easier. Like there is a proverb in the United States, they call it like you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So the idea of listening, empathetic listening, listening with a smile, paying attention and being careful is one part of the equation of communication. The second part of it is, when you are listening, there are multiple roles you can play. As we talked about, what you might call a defense attorney, or you are a prosecuting attorney, or you are a witness, or you are a judge, or you are talking to any one of them. If you are talking to any one of them, it is easier to think that being objective means fair and just neutral in the middle. But chances are, if you are in a legal case, if you are playing the role of a lawyer, there is no such thing as being fair. Why? Because you have a particular point of view that you have taken already. If you are a prosecuting attorney, you have taken a government case. If you are a defense attorney, you have taken the case of a client. So that means there is no such thing as a fair point of view, but you are looking at it from one angle. But if you keep thinking about how is that what you are saying coming across for the other person, looking at it from somebody else's perspective, that means you have to become a witness to yourself. How do you sound? Is it convincing? When you make an argument, does it sound like you are making a fair and appropriate, objective argument? Or does it sound like, in United States, when you look at some of the, Trump versus Biden or Republican versus Democrat, you know that there is no such thing as fact, there is no such thing as fairness, there is no such thing as actually being representatives of the government, because everybody will try to use everything to their advantage, but they do it so blatantly. You wonder why people are so, sometimes we are like a sheep. We just keep doing what it is, maybe because we think there is nobody else who are better than them. Because it's a two-party system. But if you are a lawyer, if you are also coming up blatantly, one disadvantage you have is you have a judge who attempts to be fair, who attempts to come to a judgment, which is appropriate. From that perspective, if you can take on what is called Sakshi Bhavam, Sakshi Bhav, if you want to call it as a Hindi word, that means you look at yourself as a third person. So am I coming too blatant? Am I coming too partisan? Am I coming too one-sided? Am I actually showing empathy? Am I coming across like there is a face saving for other person? Am I coming across like I am actually listening to other person? If you can learn to look at yourself as a third person, sometimes you can practice in mirror. These days, because with the phones, Androids and iPhones, you can record not just a photograph, but you can record anything. If you can start recording yourself making an argument or listening to somebody or talking to somebody, and see how you look at yourself and see how you like the facial expressions that you are making, the attention that you are paying, and the way in which you are listening to somebody, the way in which you are nodding, your gesticulation, all of that, when you pay attention, and if you can practice in front of mirror, in front of friends, to do it in a way that it is much more what you might call a friendly way of doing it. Chances are, even if you are talking to an opposing witness, because they will be tense, they will be in a way, they are expecting a lot of confrontation. When you come across friendly, they will drop the guard. You will be able to get a lot more information from there also. So one is Sakshi Bhava. Second one I call in similar language, if I use, is Sakhi Bhav. Sakhi Bhav means you have to come across as a friend, because even with the defense attorney or prosecuting attorney, you guys are not going to meet only for this case. Cases come and cases go, but you have to face the same judge or same prosecuting person or the same defense attorney many times. So to a certain extent, if you focus that your conflict is about a particular case, but you do not have any conflicts with who they are as a person, so that means you can focus on being a friend, but being a very fierce competitor. If you can learn how to do that, that means they know that you are fair, they know that you are friendly, they know that you will do the best job, and they know that, outside, if there is anything that they need some help in, or you need some help in, they will be able to give that. So if you can develop these two, what is called Sakhi Bhav and Sakshi Bhav, you need to be able to be a witness to yourself, so that you need to see yourself how you are coming across from the third person perspective. Second is to be a friend. You are a friend with a disagreement, rather than, you are disagreeing because you are disagreeable or other person is disagreeable. that would not go very, well over a period of time. Those are some suggestions I have. I talked mostly about listening rather than about speaking. But when you speak, if you can keep this same thing, the witnessing aspect of it and like a best friend aspect of it, if you can keep that and then talk from a perspective of as fair as you can be. Everybody knows that you are taking one side, but at the same time, when you can actually look at what works and focus on it, but whatever you're not trying to push the boundaries sometimes, then especially for the chosen fields of study that you have taken and interest that you will have a lot more progress as a good communicator rather than not doing some of those.
So, like we had previously introduced, that we share a common goal of joining the United Nations one day.
Okay.
We've also come to notice that you have coached wonderful individuals and wonderful leaders. It is very important for us as future diplomats to carry ourselves in such ways that we influence others to be better persons. So, how do you suggest one can do that?
See, the key word you used in what you are saying is being a diplomat, not just a lawyer in a court, but when you go to United Nations, as you both desire, you are not going just as lawyers, you are going as diplomats. So the key is about diplomacy, right? So if you really think about good diplomats, in recent times, it is much harder to find. Why? Because many of the diplomats are too closely connected to political parties. Whether you take United States, whether you take in India, whether you take in any part of the world, even Supreme Court justices these days in United States are not considered to be really fair and what you might call a objective. They are considered to be justices who are appointed by Republican or Democratic. Similarly, even in India, people who are what you might call put in place by Congress or BJP or some such thing that begins to happen. So when people lose faith, not only in the political system, but also in the judicial system, then it all comes down to diplomacy. Because diplomat by definition has to figure out a way to navigate the muddled waters, not by confronting, not by lawyering, but through negotiations and through communication, through generating trust, through certain what you might call a showing that you have integrity. So when you talk about integrity, when you talk about trust, when you talk about friendly attitude rather than a confrontational attitude, if you are confrontational, you are more of a military person. If you are more friendly, you are more of a diplomatic person. So what do we call somebody as a diplomat? A diplomat is a person who does not necessarily say something, even if it is bad, they won't say it to the face. They at any cost maintain a certain ability for other person to save face. So they are very politically appropriate, they are savvy politically, and they are considerate in terms of both sides of the coin. That means even if they are sitting on the other side of the table, they will try to help you on a personal basis, because they know that if you and them are on the same plate, negotiations go much more smoothly. And in business school, in negotiations class, we generally say that negotiations go very well if I can actually try to make sure you also win in the negotiation. That means I'm constantly trying to look at not get the best out of the deal, not to make sure that you go away with your face down. You actually go with your head held high, where you go with a certain feeling that you did your best and you got a fair trade or a fair deal. When you can do that, you will be sent as a negotiator again and again and again. So that means diplomacy is not about winning at all costs. Diplomacy is about making both parties win in such a way each round of negotiation, because diplomacy is not like one time you do it and you are done. Diplomacy is like a, every few months or every year or every so regularly you have to deal with, whatever term that you have got, you have to keep looking at it in terms of, how to reconnect, how to renegotiate, how to what you might call introduce yourself as a fair and appropriate person, so that other people, both on your side as well as other side, will call you for diplomatic negotiations. Then you have become very successful. Then you become one person who will actually be able to get a lot more deals done, lot more successful in your life because of your pleasant, amiable, and ability to make both parties win. Those look like very easy traits to develop, but very rarely people develop that. And those are some things you might need to become successful in the United Nations.
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful. The third question, sir. Actually, I'm in the process of building an NGO. One of the objective of it is to spread awareness about the individual action that people can to curb climate change.
Yeah.
And also, as my mom is a animal activist, I have also had a lot of experience in the animal welfare sector. What I've witnessed in both of these sectors is majority of people don't want to invest their time or give interest to such topics. I think it's socially sensitive issues and they don't want to take sides. But it's very important for them to care about both of these things. Can you tell me how I can communicate my message in a way that grasps the attention of more people?
If you want people to take action, there are three things which you need to pay attention to. One is to know what is stopping them from taking action. Number two, your message has to tap into their passion, release their energy so that they will go beyond their own belief system and their own set of obstacles that they have, that they are willing to move in the direction of action. Third, you need to identify specific and clear first steps. That's what you need to do. Like in the management, we talk about something called a change equation. A change equation means, they say, if you want somebody to change, they are on autopilot, they like what you are saying, but they don't want to take a position. Like somebody said, many times bad things happen because good people are not willing to take a position, right? So how do you get them to change? How do you get them to move? As I said, the first thing which you need to look at is, you need to understand the circumstances and the issues that prevent them from changing, first of all. And you need to be able to address them, because as long as you don't take away the barriers barrier to take action, it doesn't matter how much you pull, the barriers will prevent them from moving forward. So you need to know those hidden barriers, you need to understand those, and you need to work with the people whom you are talking to so that together you can remove the barriers. Obviously, they cannot remove the barriers by themselves. What does that take? First of all, any kind of advocacy of this kind cannot happen at a conceptual level. It has to happen at a grounded, practical level. And that means it will have regional implications, it will have location implications, it will have political implications, it will have financial implications, it may have religious implications, it may have gender implications, it may have caste implications. You need to understand what exactly are the kind of situations that they are. So for that, you may have to figure out whether there are some people who belong to that group of people, that set of people, from that village or from that caste or from that group of people who are already victimized by whatever are the certain circumstances, or who are unable to see the need for climate change, or some small steps, the individual action that they can change. You may have to identify how they will not lose out by taking this particular step. Okay. So if you can address first what they will gain, second, what they will not lose, then it will become double benefit for them. Okay. And once you do that, second thing is you need to actually join with them and figure out a way in which two of you can make some progress, because there will be always fear. In addition to resistance to change, there will be some fear. What will be the repercussions of this? Who will say that? What will say that? What will happen? So you need to figure out, either you need to get somebody else to work with them who have tried it and who have become successful, about whom these people have a positive impression. You need to create a partnership with them, or you need to partner with them. You need to figure out a way where you are hand-holding them to take the first step. If not, you need to really articulate, because, instead of, like somebody said, if I need to start walking like 5 kilometers a day, and I don't even have a habit of walking 100 meters a day, and I take my vehicle everywhere I go, then the first step it comes down to is not going to be about 5 kilometers. It is going to be about letting go of my vehicle and start walking to nearby shopping mall, or just go to the park or do something else instead of taking my car or my scooter or whatever I have that I take. So first step is to get off the clutch that we have. And so for those, we need to create context, and we need to create some kind of attractive, both the carrots and also certain things which you connect it with. For example, if they're trying to lose weight, or if they're trying to practice something, or if they're trying to deal with some chronic diseases like blood pressure or diabetes or something else, that will be helped by their being more active. So you need to find some specific kinds of things that are present in their life that they will be motivated to take. And once you take that, I talked about the exact change equation. I'll put it in. It pretty much says you need to create, first of all, a vision for future, because vision will attract them. Right. And then you need to really identify what is the resistance to change. You need to know what is the dissatisfaction with the current reality. If they are not dissatisfied with the status quo, they care about climate change, but they feel the way in which they do what they do, amount of electricity they use, amount of water they use, amount of wastage they have. If they are not actually seeing any dissatisfaction with the current reality, by doing a survey, by asking some questions, by pointing it out that their electricity consumption is 3 times more than that of somebody of that size. So that means how much money you will be saving by doing ABCD, by going to solar cells. You know what I'm saying? So if you can identify some way they can be dissatisfied with the status quo, then you will be able to do that. First, vision, dissatisfaction, and then you need to identify the first steps. It is called D times, D for dissatisfaction with the current reality, V, vision of the future, F, first steps they need to take. D times V times F has to be greater than R. R means resistance to change. It is considered as a product DFR because if they don't have a dissatisfaction, it doesn't matter whatever you tell them. Vision is great, first steps are great, the product becomes zero. If you create a great vision in them, and if they are really dissatisfied with the current reality, but they don't know what to do first, then they will not take any steps. So D and V and F, all the three of them have to be positive numbers, number one. Number two, their product has to be greater than resistance to change.
So this is really helpful for me since it's been 1 year and I really can't get through to people. So this is really helpful to me.
Good.
Thank you
I'm
so
glad to
much.
hear it. You're welcome.
How do we use our language that is understandable by everybody and not just people that know about law and are aware of the things we are speaking? Even if a layman passes by, he should be able to understand what we are trying to convey, because as you said, communication usually happens on the receiver's end.
Why am I thinking about is, for me, language has got a lot more things. There is a body language, there is a facial expression, there is a gesticulation with your hands, the signs that you might have, legalese or diplomatese or whatever you use. There are variety of things that are connected with what is called languaging or language, if you want to call it. Majority of the time, most powerful thing is start from where they are. Use the same language which they are using to a certain extent. If they are concrete type of listeners, if they are concrete people, for them, specific kinds of action rather than, instead of talking about climate change, if you were to say, save electricity or save fuel or fossil fuels versus solar cells, or whatever, if you go specifically, they will understand rather than the word climate change, for example. So for some other people who are more academic, who are more conceptual, who are more abstract in nature, for them, if you try to give only the specific kinds of actions and don't put this big umbrella word like climate change, for them, they won't pay attention to this. So you need to know your language has to be either concrete or abstract, depending on the kind of people. You will understand what language to use if you listen to them a little bit and if you observe them a little bit. Are they people who are much more precise and concrete and here and now, or are they people who are much more, vision building, big picture, like a futuristic kind of people? First, that would become important. The second thing about the language is using silence and using body language, using your eyes, using your smile, and, if it is appropriate, little bit of touch, and lots of interrupt you and talk to you, lot of ways in which they can get in, becomes much more, closer in communication rather than giving a big talk, big lecture. For example, when we started about communication, and when I heard that you want to do something about communication, I could have done the entire 30 minutes just on communication. I could have given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and these are the things and all that. But that's the reason why I stopped and I asked you, what do you want? And do you have more questions? Should I frame it? Why? Now that I knew that you have more questions, I tried to make it between 2 to 5 minutes kind of a piece, so that there is a chunk that you can get out of it, but at the same time, it will give opportunities for 3 or 4 or 5 questions. Same way, when you asked about language, I had to stop and say how to break it down into small chunks that can fit in like a 2 to 3 minutes or 4 minutes, so that it becomes easy, and what are the key points that I need to make. So instead of assuming, interacting with other person. See, many people think that giving right answer is extremely important. What I found as a teacher for a long period of time, everybody has answers, but nobody has really good questions to ask. Good questions make people think. Good answers will satisfy something, but if you want people to take action, you need to learn to ask right questions, not rhetorical questions, But if you can ask provocative, probing, and thoughtful, poignant questions, chances are you will get them to not only think about it, but also those questions will stay in their hearts and mind for long. Though they might not take action right away, they will create an opening for you to go back and make a deeper difference to them. So that's what I would say. Use your language in a way that it has more open-ended questioning, more inquiry, so that both of you will be in the query. Both of you will actually come up with answering it together, rather than you have a pat answer, you are asking some kind of a closed-ended question, which will not work. Okay. Those are some thoughts I have about becoming effective communicators and effective diplomats, whatever you have, in such a way that you will become successful.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir. That was really helpful.